Have you got and don't want to die? Because if that's the case, please watch this video, because I'm going to tell the story of how my sister passed away, and like the one thing that I want anyone to take away from her death, and she wanted anyone to take away from her death, is to like look after your health. So basically, in the summer of 2021, she began experiencing like having these clots that were like the size of a size 10 foot falling out her minge, and it was like really bad, and she kept going to the doctors and the hospital, and then she kept saying, oh, it's fine, you're just getting a period, oh, you've got a heavy flow, I'll go home, take some paracetamol, and like it was really bad. She kept going up to like the hospitals like, every week, because it was like the pain was so awful. She'd never felt anything like it in her life. She'd had bad periods before. This was not a period. She knew that, and they kept saying, oh, you've got a blood clot, take some blood thinners. It was just making it worse, or just go home and take some paracetamol and see if it gets any better, and it didn't. And eventually, after months of like pleading and begging the doctor, she managed to get a gynecologist appointment, and the guy was just rude, like so rude. So basically, like he looked up her minge, and she was in like really awful pain when she was doing it, and he just said, oh, I'm not doing this because you're in too much pain, rather than like actually investigating the reason why, because she had a tumour inside of that was the size of my fist. Like how the man missed that is beyond me. And like if he found that, like she probably might still be alive, because she was neglected so bad throughout the whole of this process. And that was in October of 2021, and by this point we're now in January 2021, and she's still begging and pleading with doctors just to find out what's going on with her, because she's still got these clots falling out of her. She's still in intense pain, she's short of breath. So by the January, I think it was literally my birthday, she told me she managed to get a scan done and she might have cancer. And I'm thinking, okay, that's fine, we can treat it with chemo, radio, she's going to be okay. And it wasn't until February that we got official diagnosis. She's got cervical cancer, but by that point the cancer had spread to her lungs, her liver, her stomach, so many, like she was riddled with it, and it was like, she's going to die basically, she's not going to be able to make it. At this point she was living in Essex as well, and she just got her flat down here, and I just spent like the past month, every day after work I was painting it, fitting like literally blood, sweat and tears, all of my savings into her flat, making sure it's good for her when she gets here. And I remember I got the phone call, I was literally up a ladder in her flat, putting a light bulb in, and she gave me the phone call and like said exactly what was wrong with her, and it's still to this day the worst thing I've ever heard, and the worst thing I will ever hear. So she moved back down here, and I think 2 days later we had to call an ambulance and rush her into the hospital, because she was just like really in a bad way, and she was put in a ward. They literally just left her there. She couldn't eat. As soon as she eats, she was being sick because of the cancer in her stomach. She couldn't keep any foods down. The only thing I could get for her to eat when she was at home is I used to buy these, you know, the Weetabix on-the-go drinks, and she could keep those down. She was eating those and bananas. But when she was in the hospital, they were like force-feeding her sandwiches and like gammy cold fish and chips. By the way, this is the hospital that's in Slough, and it's like one of the worst hospitals in the UK. Then she would obviously throw up this stuff that was irritating her stomach, and then they just leave her sat in her own puke for hours, not clearing her up. The nurses would slag her off in the corridor as loudly as she could hear. All this while she sat in a bed dying of cancer. And then eventually they just decided, oh, she's got a blood clot, and they just give her some blood thinners and sent her home. And basically she got back to her flat, and we've all got there. The ambulance dropped her off, and we're walking her up the stairs, and she literally could barely get up the stairs to her flat. Like she was like, it's like she'd like been spiked or something. Like it was awful. Eventually get her back up in her bed and sat on her bed, but she just like, she was not right. She'd lost all the feeling on the right side of her body. She looked like she'd had a stroke basically. And a week before, my mum had to take her to Essex because she had an appointment with an oncology department to basically see exactly what's wrong with the cancer, you know, brain scans, a lot, and then what can be done. But it got cancelled and moved to the week later. And I seriously think with my heart, if the appointment never got cancelled, I think she'd still be alive. She might not have the greatest quality of life, but I think she genuinely would still be here. Because what the doctors didn't realise was that the cancer had also spread to her brain, and she had tumours all in her brain. So by them prescribing her blood thinners, it caused the tumours to burst, which led it all to leak into the back of her brainstem, and she went brain dead, basically. So I got the phone call from my mum that she might be having a stroke. My house is like a 20-minute drive from my flat. I think I got there in about 8 minutes. Like I was just driving like an absolute cunt. And when I got there, she could barely talk. And like when she looked in my eyes, like, I knew it was like relief to see me, but because I think she knew that was it. She was going to die that night. So we called the ambulance again. They've taken her back to the hospital, and my mum's told me to go home to bed because I'm thinking, oh, she's going to be all right. Like, I've got work in the morning. Like, nothing bad's going to happen. I'm going to go home. I've woke up at about 6 in the morning to my brother, like, screaming, crying in the hallway. And and my mum's saying, I need to come to the hospital now. So I've got to the hospital, and basically it's like, she's in a coma. She's probably never going to wake up. They'll keep her on the machines for 24 hours. If they turn the machines off and she doesn't breathe, then that's it, she's going to die. They were trying to get the top brain specialist in England to perform surgery on her, but because of how bad the cancer was in her body, even if he could reverse the brain damage, she'd have no quality of life, and she probably wouldn't be able to speak and literally be like a vegetable, and it just wasn't not fair on her. So on the 4th of March 2022, my sister passed away at 31 years old because of cervical cancer, and a fat case of medical negligence the whole way through. So I guess the sort of message of this video is, if there is something wrong with you, only you know what is going on in your body, so make sure you push harder. If you know that there is something wrong with you, you need to kick and scream and shout until you get what you want, because we all pay tax, we all have the right to an NHS, and if you can't get what you want in the NHS, go private. It's like £30–40 a month to go private. It's not as expensive as everyone thinks. They can refer you to the NHS, and you can't actually put a price on your health. You really can't. And cervical cancer is so common, so make sure you get your smears done, because if you don't get your smears done, you've got those cells. If you've got the beginning of them cells, you can just get it burned away. My mum's had it done 1,000 times. My auntie's had it done. But if you leave them, then that can lay undetected in your body for years until it's too late. Like, cervical cancer is a massive problem. And the fact they don't actually give you a smear until you're 25 is beyond me. When girls start having sex 13, 14 nowadays, and usually cervical cancer is caused by the HPV virus, which comes from a man's dirty dick. So if girls are having sex young, they need to get smears younger. So if you, as a person, need to be responsible for your own health and go get one done privately, like it's £200, I think. But yeah, up, mate.
This video is a raw and emotional plea for women to take control of their health, especially when it comes to cervical cancer. The speaker shares the tragic story of their sister's death due to medical negligence, highlighting how doctors repeatedly dismissed her severe symptoms until it was too late. The speaker emphasizes the importance of advocating for yourself when you feel something is wrong, urging women to push for proper medical attention and get regular screenings like smear tests. This powerful message underlines how critical it is to take health concerns seriously and not let them be brushed off by medical professionals.